In his past life, he was a skilled craftsman that nobody ever valued. His own team kicked him out, said he was too slow, too quiet, not worth keeping. He spent his last days grinding through dull overwork until his body just gave out, dying alone, sure his talent would die with him. Then he woke up in a white room. A voice, a god, told him what no one ever had, that he'd always had huge hidden potential buried by a life that never gave it a chance. The god offered him a fresh start in a world of swords and magic. He could have been a hero or a mage, but he was too worn out for that. So he asked for something quiet instead, to be a craftsman who just makes things out in the peaceful countryside. God agreed and gave him a blessing that would naturally draw people to him. He is reborn as William, the second son of the Fairchild family, a noble house guarding the kingdom's border. He regains his past life memories on his 6th birthday. Growing up in a loving home with his talented older brother Edward and his sweet little sister Sophia, William enjoys a comfortable life, though he stays a bit chubby because the food is just too good. In this world, the 10th birthday is a big deal because a priest performs a skill appraisal to see what powers a child has. Being a military noble family, his parents hope for combat or magic skills, making William nervous since he specifically asked to be a producer. When the day arrives, the priest reveals William's skill, production. William is initially crushed, thinking he's failed his noble family since nobles don't usually do manual labor. However, his parents are incredibly supportive, telling him that making things is just as important as fighting. To help him grow, his father hires a famous retired expert named Alika as a tutor. Alika teaches him that production isn't just about crafting. It's about using magic to turn feelings into form. While most beginners struggle, William uses his memories from the modern world to visualize high-quality designs. On his very first try, he shocks Alika by skipping the basics and instantly creating a beautifully detailed antique-style chair. His parents rush in to see the commotion and are blown away by his talent. Feeling proud and happy for the first time, William gifts the chairs to his parents, realizing that his new life as a creator might be the most rewarding path of all. One morning, breakfast is interrupted by news that a swarm of monsters has come out of the great forest. William's father, the Count, immediately leads the family's knights to handle the threat. Watching them go, William realizes he made the right choice picking a production skill. He can't imagine himself fighting monsters, and even the god who reincarnated him said his soul was too tired for that kind of life. To keep his mind off the danger, William's tutor, Alika, suggests working with leather. William decides to make a gift for his little sister, Sophia, who wanted a bag. Using his memories of high-end earth brands, he visualizes a cute, pink, elegant handbag. In a flash of light, the bag appears. It's so well made that Alika is stunned. Next, he decides to help his older brother, Edward, who is studying hard for the academy. William notices Edward's room is messy with books, so he creates a beautiful antique bookshelf with intricate carvings. The gifts are a massive hit. Sophia and Edward are thrilled, and William feels a huge sense of pride seeing his family happy. He even makes a fancy mirror chest for his mother, who suggests his creations are good enough to be official gifts for other nobles. Alika notices something strange, though William isn't tired at all. Usually, making a few items drains a person's magic, but William has so much mana that Alika thinks he might be more powerful than the kingdom's top royal maid. Soon after, William's childhood friend Scarlet comes to visit. She's the daughter of a neighboring earl and recently gained a sword skill. When she hears William has a production skill, she tries to be nice, thinking it's a weak power. To show her what it can do, William asks her what she needs. She mentions wanting a bag for her sword practice, so William creates a modern-style crossbody bag, something that doesn't even exist in this world. It fits her perfectly and even has her family crest on it. He then takes her to a massive warehouse he built in the backyard to show off his furniture. Scarlet is totally blown away, realizing William's weak skill is actually incredible. Hold up! Smash like and subscribe for more hidden manga gems. Now, I dare you to comment, I'm loving it. I bet most of you won't do it. Alright, let's continue. The peaceful days change when a group of about 100 dwarves appears at the border. They fled their mountain home after a monster invasion and are now homeless and exhausted. The Count wants to help, but explains to the family that the city doesn't have enough room or houses for 100 people. The dwarves refuse to be split up, so they're stuck camping outside in the cold. William can't stand seeing them suffer. He steps up and tells his father he'll build houses for all of them. His family thinks it's impossible, but William explains that with his massive mana and his production skill, he can build 5 houses a day. He visits a local carpenter named Kraft, who kindly agrees to draw up blueprints for a sturdy log house. Even though William is technically doing the carpenter's job, Kraft is happy to help the refugees. With the blueprints ready, William prepares to use his magic to build an entire village in just 1 week. When William makes his way to the dwarves, they're skeptical that a human kid can build houses faster than they can. To prove it, William uses his storage magic to pull out a massive pile of wood and stone, instantly grabbing their attention. He focuses hard on the blueprints, and a bright light wraps around the material. When the glow fades, a solid log house is standing right there. The dwarves are floored, they've never seen magic like this. Inside, the house is perfect, complete with a cozy fireplace. The dwarves are so moved they apologize for doubting him and happily accept his help. After getting his father's permission, William picks a spot between the mountains and a river so the dwarves can have water for their blacksmithing. Over the next 5 days, William works himself to the bone, building 30 houses in total. When he finishes the last one, the dwarves are so happy some of them actually start crying. William is exhausted, but seeing his family and the dwarves so proud of him makes it all worth it. Winter arrives, and William visits the new village to make sure everyone is warm. Even though his father gave them a tax break and free food so they could rest, the dwarves are already busy building workshops. They're a hardworking bunch and want to pay back the family's kindness as soon as possible. Meanwhile, life at the manor is peaceful until spring rolls around, which means it's time for William's older brother, Edward, to head off to the Royal Academy. The whole family sees him off, feeling a bit lonely as his carriage disappears. Not long after, a famous merchant named Alex Levant shows up. He saw the high-quality bags and furniture William made for other nobles and traveled all the way from the capital to find the creator. He's shocked to find out the master craftsman is just a young noble boy. Even though he can't officially sell a noble's work in his shop, he leaves deeply impressed, and William feels a new surge of confidence. Soon, William's father asks him to attend a big noble party. William is nervous because other kids used to tease him about his weight, but his parents encourage him to be proud of his talent. At the party, instead of being ignored, William is surrounded by adult nobles who can't stop praising his work. They've all received his chairs or bags as gifts and are blown away by the quality. Even his childhood friend Scarlett shows off the bag William made her, telling everyone how amazing his production skill really is. However, things take a sad turn when his tutor, Alika, announces she's moving back to the capital. She tells William there's nothing left for her to teach him. He's already reached a professional level and can even use appraisal magic to check the quality of his material. After she leaves, William feels a bit lost, but he decides to honor her by taking his craft seriously. He asks his father for permission to enter the great forest to find his own high-quality material. His father agrees but insists that the head of the knights, Liam, goes along as a bodyguard. Even though William thinks it's a bit much for a simple supply run, he heads into the dangerous woods to start his next chapter as a true creator. When William enters the great forest for the first time, he feels his magic naturally draining even though he isn't crafting anything. The forest is brighter than he expected, and he quickly gets to work using his storage magic to collect high-quality wood without even needing to chop it down. As he walks, he realizes he's moving with incredible speed and agility, easily dodging falling branches that even the head knight Liam barely has time to react to. It turns out William is unconsciously using body enhancement magic. His massive mana pool allows him to keep this up all day, climbing trees and gathering rare plants with ease. The next morning, the price for his excitement hits hard. William wakes up in total pain, unable to move. Liam explains that normally, using enhancement magic for that long would drain a person dry and leave them with terrible muscle aches. William's mother stays by his side, taking care of him like a normal kid rather than a noble, which makes him feel loved. When he finally manages to get out of bed a day later, he notices his clothes are huge on him. Looking in the mirror, he's shocked to see a slim, handsome boy looking back. The body enhancement workout burned off all his extra weight in a single day. His family is stunned by his new look, and while William is a bit confused by the sudden change, he's happy to be fit. With his new energy, William dives back into crafting. He starts experimenting with dyes made from forest berries, creating colorful furniture that quickly fills up his warehouses. Since he has too much stock, his father suggests donating the items. William gives beautiful furniture to the local orphanage, bringing smiles to the kids' faces, and takes another batch to the dwarf village. The dwarves are moved to tears by the high-quality gifts, especially since they are still recovering from losing their home. While at the village, a young dwarf boy named Theo approaches William and begs to be his apprentice. Theo is smaller and weaker than other dwarves, and he explains that he's bad at traditional blacksmithing because he can't swing a heavy hammer. He wants to learn how to make incredible things using just magic and skill like William does. After seeing that Theo is smart, honest, and has a great imagination for design, William agrees. He gets his father's permission to hire Theo, and the young dwarf moves into the manor to start his training. Soon after, William's father gives him his first official job, renovating the knight's old, crumbling barracks. The building is a military secret, so they can't hire outside workers. William and Theo get to work, replacing rotten wood and cracked stone at lightning speed. But William wants to go above and beyond. He decides to build the knights a luxury bathhouse, something usually reserved for the super wealthy. He buys marble from a local merchant and gets special tiles from the dwarves, even designing a mosaic of the family crest on the floor. When the knights return to the barracks, they are speechless. The old building looks brand new, and when they see the massive marble bath, they can't believe their luck. It's so fancy that Liam worries it's actually nicer than the one in the Count's own mansion. To keep things fair, William ends up upgrading his family's bathroom too. Seeing the knights so happy and motivated makes William realize that his production skill is changing people's lives for the better. Word of William's barracks renovation spreads fast, and soon a group of young people shows up begging to be his apprentices. They're inspired by how he uses his production skill for big projects like building houses and fixing military buildings. William is a bit overwhelmed, but his father, the Count, steps in with a plan. He realizes that while William can't officially sell goods as a noble, he can lead a workshop where others do the work. The Count officially establishes the Fairchild Workshop, and William's loyal butler, Smith, even pre-screens the applicants to make sure they're hardworking and honest. William builds a unique, high-ceilinged hexagonal workshop with a luxury bathhouse for the staff. He starts teaching the new apprentices, including a talented young man named Carpenter. While everyone is eager, William notices that none of them have his massive mana or his apprentice Theo's natural flair for detail. However, they all find their own strengths, and soon the workshop is running smoothly without William needing to oversee every single detail. Even the famous merchant Alex Levant returns, eager to sell the workshop's high-quality goods in the capital. Summer arrives, and William's older brother, Edward, returns from the Royal Academy. He's impressed to see that William has slimmed down and mastered body enhancement magic. The family enjoys a happy reunion, though their little sister Sophia pouts because William is too busy with work to play. But the peaceful mood shifts when a severe drought hits. It hasn't rained in months, and the Count is worried that the autumn wheat planting will fail, leading to a massive famine. William wants to help his people, but realizes building irrigation channels would take too long. He remembers a strange wild weed he found in the forest that stays green even in dry soil. Using his appraisal skill, he confirms it's naturally drought-resistant. He tries to combine the weed with wheat seeds using his magic, but it fails at first. It's only after a chat with Sophia about her biology lessons that William gets an idea. Instead of just mixing them, he visualizes merging the genetic traits of the two plants. The experiment works, and he successfully creates a new strain of drought-resistant wheat. William spends the next month pushing his mana to the limit to produce enough seeds for the entire territory. The farmers are overjoyed to receive the miracle seeds, and the threat of famine is avoided. Exhausted from the hard work, William decides it's finally time to take a long, well-deserved break. As the season for planting winter wheat arrived, William's father issued a formal decree to the farmers, distributing the new drought-resistant seeds and instructing everyone to plant them immediately. Wagons loaded with wheat sacks left the workshop, escorted by knights to ensure no desperate bandits from neighboring lands could steal the precious cargo. The knights were more motivated than ever, knowing these seeds were the only thing standing between the people and a massive famine. By late autumn, a few light rains fell, but the dry spell clearly wasn't over. As winter set in, the family gathered around the fireplace to stay warm, and this year, William's apprentice Theo joined them. Since Theo's parents had gone missing during the monster invasion in the forest, William's parents decided to treat the young dwarf like one of their own. Although Theo was shy at first, he eventually relaxed, enjoying hot tea and conversation by the fire. The usual winter snow never came, which worried William's father. Without snow to melt in the spring, the water shortage would only get worse. His parents praised William for his hard work, telling him that even if the new wheat failed, he had already done more than enough. Deep within the great forest, a group of elves guarding the legendary world tree were also struggling. Monsters were increasing, and their leader feared they might have to flee their sacred home. They had heard rumors of the dwarves escaping the forest and assumed they were being mistreated by humans. However, a scout returned with shocking news. The dwarves were living in beautiful houses with fireplaces and warm soup, protected by a kind human lord who didn't even charge them taxes. The elven leader was stunned, wondering if such a generous human truly existed and if his own people should seek help too. On William's 12th birthday, his father threw a massive party. Unlike previous years, the hall was packed with nobles eager to meet the boy who founded the famous workshop and saved the crops. Because William had slimmed down so much from his magic training, many guests didn't even recognize him, mistaking him for a high-ranking visiting prince. His childhood friend Scarlett recognized him instantly, though, and was happy to see him looking so fit. Soon, William was swarmed by noble girls competing for his attention, but Scarlet stepped in and scared them off so he could breathe. During the party, the merchant Alex Levant arrived to pay his respects. He introduced his child, Olivia, who was so breathtakingly beautiful that William was momentarily starstruck. Olivia praised William's genius, noting that his massive mana and unique ideas made him a once-in-a-generation talent. After a brief chat, Olivia went over to talk to Scarlet. Whatever she whispered made Scarlet's initial jealousy vanish instantly, leaving the two girls on surprisingly good terms. Summer approached, and it was finally time to harvest the miracle wheat. Nervous to see the results, William traveled to the fields with his bodyguard Liam. As they reached the top of a hill, they saw a literal sea of gold stretching to the horizon. The wheat had grown perfectly despite the drought. William was so relieved he collapsed onto the grass, watching the grain ripple in the wind. Back at the manor, the head butler Smith rushed into breakfast with the official report. It was a record-breaking harvest across the entire territory. While neighboring lands were suffering from hunger, the Fairchild lands were thriving. William even taught Theo how to use production magic to replicate the seeds, ensuring they would never run out. To celebrate the massive success, William's mother announced a grand summer festival. Since the previous year had been so gloomy, she wanted this one to be unforgettable. People flooded into the city of Northernford from every corner of the land, filling every inn to capacity. On the day of the festival, the family gathered at the central square before a statue of the goddess. William's mother, dressed in elegant white robes with flowers in her hair, looked like a goddess herself as she offered the first stalks of wheat to the altar. As a beam of sunlight broke through the clouds to shine on her, the crowd fell into a respectful silence. Then William's father gave the command to start the party, and the city erupted into music, dancing, and feasting. Seeing the joy on everyone's faces, William realized that being a producer was the best job he could have ever asked for. As the summer festival wrapped up, William's father, the Count, met with visiting nobles who were desperate to buy the miracle wheat. To avoid any messy political drama or price fighting, the Count smartly handed all sales over to Alex Levant's merchant guild. Later, William's childhood friend Scarlet and her father, the Earl, stopped by to offer their thanks. The Earl even joked about William becoming his son-in-law one day, which made Scarlet turn bright red and stomp on her dad's foot. During the festival, William and his sister Sophia ran into Olivia, the beautiful daughter of the merchant Alex. However, William revealed a surprising secret. Olivia was actually a boy named Oliver who just really loved dressing in girls' clothes and was amazing at makeup. Despite his hobby, Olivia was a genius businessman. He predicted that because of the drought elsewhere, the Fairchild wheat would sell for double or even triple its value. He advised William to sell it quickly to help people and avoid making the royal family suspicious of their massive success. When the summer break hit, William's older brother Edward returned from the Royal Academy. He was incredibly proud of William's growth and the success of the workshop. Edward had become the vice president of the student council, rubbing shoulders with the kingdom's elite. When he headed back to school, he bragged about his brother to the student council president, who happened to be the third princess of the kingdom. She and the other council members were stunned to hear that a production skill could save a territory from famine and even command the respect of dwarves. Back at the border, things got busy again. A new group of refugees emerged from the Great Forest. This time, it wasn't dwarves, but a group of elves. They were elegant, beautiful people with long ears who usually stayed far away from humans. However, after their home was overrun by monsters, they decided to seek out the kind human lord the dwarves had told them about. The group was led by Lucilina, the daughter of the elven chief. She sadly explained that her parents had gone missing during their escape. The Count welcomed them with open arms, and William offered to use his magic to build them a new home. Since elves are often targeted by kidnappers because of their beauty, Lucilina asked if they could live in a hidden village deep in the woods rather than near the main town. The Count agreed, promising to keep them safe from any outsiders who might try to cause trouble. William prepared to get back to work, ready to build a secret sanctuary for his new elven friends. William took the elves to the dwarf village first to see if they could get along. Even though stories usually say elves and dwarves fight, these two groups were actually old friends. The dwarves were happy to see them safe, and the elves were relieved to find a place where they could finally relax. Since the Fairchild territory is huge and mostly empty, William's butler, Smith, found several quiet forest spots for the elves to choose from. They picked a forest with massive ancient trees because being near old growth made them feel at home. When it came time to build, the elves showed off their own magic. Instead of cutting down trees to make space, they used spirit magic to gently slide the trees aside, creating a perfect clearing without hurting nature. William got to work using his production magic, but he noticed he had even more mana than before. He was able to build 5 sturdy log houses in a row and still feel totally fine. To speed things up, his apprentice Theo joined in. It turned out Theo and the elven leader Lucilina were childhood friends because they were both children of tribal chiefs. Theo had kept his royal background a secret because he just wanted to be a regular apprentice, but he was happy to help his old friend. Together, They built 10 houses in a single day. One of the elven women asked William if he could build houses up in the trees like they had back home. William had seen tree houses on the internet in his past life, so he gave it a shot. He visualized the structure blending into the branches, and with a flash of light, a beautiful treehouse appeared high up in a massive tree. The elves were so moved they called him a savior. In just a few days, William and Theo finished 30 homes, including 8 treehouses, giving the elves a perfect secret village. As the weather cooled down for autumn, William noticed how hard it was for farmers to move their wagons on the bumpy, dusty dirt roads. He decided to upgrade the territory's infrastructure by building stone roads. He used his workshop to mass-produce stone pavers, but he needed help leveling the ground. He called in the dwarves, who are masters of earth magic. They were so grateful for William's help that they wanted to work for free, but William insisted on paying them fairly. With the dwarves using magic to flatten the dirt and William laying the stones, they worked at incredible speed. The townspeople were shocked to see a beautiful stone road appearing out of nowhere. They even brought the workers snacks and drinks to show their thanks. The dwarves, who had been nervous about living near humans, were touched by the kindness and worked even harder. Soon, the main road from the city to the outskirts was smooth and solid, which would eventually help the whole local economy grow. However, the mood shifted as news arrived from other parts of the kingdom. While the Fairchild lands were thriving thanks to William's miracle wheat, other territories were starting to starve because of the drought. Things got so bad that the king called an emergency meeting in the capital. William's father rushed off to attend, and when he returned, he had big news. The king had heard about William's drought-resistant wheat from the third princess, who was friends with William's older brother, Edward. The king officially ordered that William's wheat be distributed across the entire kingdom as seeds to prevent a national famine. While this was a huge honor, William's father warned him that the king had specifically used William's full name in the decree. This meant the royal family was now keeping a very close eye on William's incredible powers. His father told him that when he grows up, the king might even give him his own title and land because of his genius. William was a bit worried because he just wanted a quiet life making things, but his father promised to support him no matter what. Even if William becomes a high-ranking noble on his own, his family will always be there for him, and they'll do whatever it takes to make sure he can stay in the countryside he loves. Will's younger sister, Sophia, recently turned 10 and gained a magic skill. While she was a bit bummed she didn't get a production skill like Will, she's still a natural at magic. Shortly after, her friend Mabel, a young noble girl from a nearby land, also turned 10, but actually did get a production skill. Most nobles look down on making things, but Sophia gave Mabel a huge pep talk about how cool Will's powers are. Mabel's father was so impressed by Will's reputation that he asked Will to take Mabel on as an apprentice. Will happily agreed, remembering how hard it was when people judged him for his own skill. Mabel turned out to be a total natural, smart, hardworking, and great at organizing the workshop. She became a key part of the team so quickly that Will even started paying her a salary, treating her like a professional rather than just a student. As winter hit, the air got cold and dry, and a scary sickness started spreading across the kingdom. It wasn't just a cold, people were coughing up blood. Will realized it was tuberculosis, a deadly lung disease. Since there's no healing magic for illnesses in this world, he knew he had to act fast. He visited the elves and used their long-standing wisdom as a cover story to suggest everyone start wearing masks and washing their hands. While visiting, the elven elder took Will to a secret area to see a sapling of the legendary world tree. When Will touched it, the tree glowed, revealing an ancient stone tablet. The elder explained that Will is actually a savior from another world, prophesied to lead apostles, like a blacksmith, a general, and a priest to fight off a growing darkness. The elder pointed out that the famine and the current plague are all part of this dark force trying to weaken humanity. Will rushed home to distribute masks and soap, but the disease was moving too fast. Tragically, his mother, Mary, caught it while helping the poor at a soup kitchen. When Will saw her, she was in terrible shape. He felt helpless. His production skill couldn't just create a cure without knowing the recipe or having the right ingredient. He desperately tried to remember science from his past life, recalling a medicine called streptomycin, but he couldn't remember how to make it. Seeing Will's breakdown, his friend Theo stepped in. Theo's family had also been treated like kin by Mary, and he was just as determined to save her. He told Will that the dwarves have ancient scrolls filled with secret knowledge about medicine and history. With no time to waste, Will and Theo raced toward the dwarf village, hoping the ancient texts held the key to saving his mother's life. Liam, the head of the knights, didn't hesitate to lend Will his 2 best horses when he heard Will was racing to find a cure for his mother, Mary. He called her the sun of their land and begged Will to save her. Will and his dwarf friend Theo reached the dwarf village in record time, where Theo's uncle, the chief, welcomed them. When he heard Mary was sick, the chief was devastated. The dwarves loved her because she treated them like family. He ignored the rules about keeping their ancient scrolls secret and immediately started digging through old records to help. While waiting, Will finally took a moment to drink some tea. Realizing he hadn't eaten or while Will waited at the dwarf village, he thought about the lives he was trying to save. One of those people was Oliver, a young man who loved fashion and makeup. Oliver was currently fighting the same deadly lung disease that hit Will's mother. He was in bad shape, coughing up blood and feeling his life slip away, but he was at peace because his parents had always supported his choice to live authentically as himself. Oliver's father eventually rushed in with a special medicine he got from Will's family. It wasn't a drink, but a liquid meant for a silver tool called a syringe. Even though Oliver was tired of useless meds, he trusted Will's reputation. His mother poked his arm with the needle and Oliver drifted off to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, the chest pain was gone. A magic checkup confirmed he was recovering. Overjoyed, Oliver decided he wanted to spend his life helping Will. He asked his father to let him run a new branch of their family business near Will's land so he could eventually join Will's team. Back at his workshop, Will realized that while he had the medicine, he needed a way to give it to thousands of people. He couldn't make plastic syringes, so he decided on glass. However, glass was expensive and hard to make. Will remembered that a certain type of tall grass was rich in the minerals needed for glass. He asked the elves for help, and they led him to a spot in the forest where the grass grew thick. Will used his skills to turn the grass and river sand into glass syringes. The dwarf craftsman helped by making the metal needles. Now he had a way to actually distribute the cure. Meanwhile, in the capital, a young noble girl named Olivia felt empty. Like Will, she didn't get combat or magic skills. She had a commerce skill, which other nobles mocked as being greedy or low class. Hearing stories about a boy who turned a weak production skill into something legendary gave her a tiny spark of hope, even though she felt like a hollow doll just waiting to be married off. Will wasn't just focused on medicine, though. He knew people were still starving, and if the weather stayed bad, the wheat might not be enough. He wanted a superfood that could grow anywhere. Using his skills and the elves' knowledge of plants, he combined two different types of tubers to create a potato. He even managed to tweak the magic so the plants wouldn't be poisonous and could grow in the same soil year after year. He named the new crop Pompt. As Will expanded his workshop and planted the new crops, a message arrived from the royal family. The king wanted to see him. Will traveled to the capital with his father, noticing how much faster the trip was thanks to the stone roads he had built. When they arrived at the palace, King Edgar II met them personally. The king praised Will for saving the kingdom from famine and disease, calling him a child prodigy. Now the king wanted to discuss a massive reward for Will's life-saving invention. The king was so impressed by Will's inventions that he awarded the Fairchild family a massive treasure of 1,000 platinum coins, worth about 10 billion yen. While Will's father tried to decline such a huge amount, the king insisted, even joking that he wanted to promote the family to dukes. Next, the king turned to Will's personal reward. Will realized he was surrounded by truly amazing friends, even if they made it impossible for him to pay them back. With the kingdom stabilizing, Will couldn't shake a bad feeling about the great sea of trees. Since the dwarves and elves had already fled the forest, he knew the monsters inside were becoming a serious threat. Even though the local knights hadn't seen a change yet, Will decided to be proactive. He tried making weapons, but since his dwarf friend Theo was a much better blacksmith, Will focused on armor instead. He realized the knights' heavy metal armor was too clunky for the forest, while their lighter chainmail didn't protect well against the sharp tusks and claws of forest beasts. Will decided to use his production skills to upgrade tough animal hides into something better. While working, he focused hard on his desire to protect his friends. Suddenly, a magic circle appeared and his hands glowed with a blinding, holy light. When the glow faded, he had created a leather chest piece with special physical and piercing resistance powers built right into the material. Will was shocked. He had accidentally used enchantment magic, a super rare skill that usually drains a ton of energy. Theo, who was the only one watching, mentioned that Will's whole body had glowed like a god. Worried about this new power, Will visited the Elven Elder. The Elder explained that while most saviors don't awaken like their followers do, Will might be getting stronger every time he gains a new apostle or teammate. Since Theo had recently joined him, Will had leveled up. Knowing that armor with 2 enchantments was unheard of, Will consulted Liam, the head of the knights. Liam nearly shouted in shock, realizing how valuable the gear was, and warned Will that such items were incredibly rare. Will's father agreed, telling Will to keep this a secret. If people found out he could mass-produce legendary armor, greedy nobles would never leave him alone. They decided to keep production low, making only 20 suits for emergencies. Around this time, a new branch of the Levant Trading Company opened nearby. The new manager turned out to be Oliver, the young man Will had saved from the plague. Oliver had decided to stop hiding his identity and use his real name, though he still loved wearing makeup and looking beautiful. He told Will that he didn't want to just run a shop. He wanted to serve Will personally as a way to pay him back for saving his life. Will was hesitant since Oliver was the heir to a massive business, but Oliver insisted that helping Will build his legacy was more exciting than just making money. Will hired him to handle the boring stuff like accounting and contracts, which Will usually ignored. When Will introduced Oliver to his team of rough craftsmen, they were all stunned by Oliver's beauty, thinking he was a girl. Oliver took it in stride and immediately started organizing the workshop, even taking over the heavy paperwork that Will's young apprentice, Mabel, had been struggling with. Oliver quickly proved his loyalty by meeting with Will's parents. While Will's father was just confused by Oliver's feminine look, his mother, Mary, was much tougher. She gave Oliver a scary mom stare, making sure he wasn't planning to lead Will into trouble. Once Oliver explained that he wanted to be Will's future advisor and help run his lands, Mary finally smiled and gave him her blessing. Oliver realized then that while everyone in the village was kind, Mary was definitely the one person he should never make angry. With Oliver handling the business side, Will started planning a massive new workshop. He gathered his core team, Theo, Mabel, the lead carpenter, and Oliver to get their input. For the first time, the team felt comfortable asking for what they actually needed, like a private room for secret inventions, a break room for the workers, and a professional office for meeting rich merchants. Will felt lucky to have such a solid group of friends who cared about the project as much as he did. Just as things settled down, a letter arrived for Will with a royal seal. It was from Princess Flora. She wrote to tell him that his pep talk had changed her life. She was now studying hard and using her commerce skill to help the king manage the country. She even mentioned that the king was starting a new school specifically for kids with production and commerce skills, all because of Will's influence. The princess ended the letter by saying she missed him and wanted to see him again. When Will showed the letter to his mother, she teased him about having a girlfriend. Will tried to brush it off as just a polite letter from a royal, but his mother just smiled, happy to see her son making such a big impact on the world and maybe even on a princess's heart. Will wasted no time building his new workshop, and it was anything but ordinary. Using his production skills, he designed a stunning white building with curved roofs that looked like overlapping seashells, inspired by a famous landmark from his past life. He filled the gaps with expensive glass to let in tons of natural light. Inside, he made sure everyone was taken care of. There was a cozy cafe for the craftsmen to relax, a private changing room for the female staff, and a professional office for Oliver to handle the paperwork. To keep his secret enchantment magic hidden, he even added a basement where he could work without anyone seeing him glow. With the business growing, Will hired more help. Oliver recruited skilled clerks from the capital who were tired of the big city and wanted a quiet life in the countryside. Mabel also brought in talented people with production skills from the local lands. With a full team handling the reception and accounting, Will and his fellow craftsmen could finally focus entirely on making things. While the medicine for the plague was already reaching people across the kingdom, Will knew that prevention was just as important. He decided to introduce high-quality soap to help people stay clean. Since chemicals were hard to find, he used the ancient method of burning oak and beech wood to get ash, which acts as a natural cleaner. He mixed this with oils and fats to create solid soap. He even got creative and made gemstone soap, clear, colorful bars with real rose and lavender petals inside. The female staff loved them and will put Mabel in charge of a new team to produce these beautiful soaps for the market. On his 13th birthday, Will took a moment to reflect on how crazy his year had been, from saving his mother and meeting the king to becoming a future baron. His birthday party was packed with nobles, including a special guest, Lucas Sheffield, the heir to a powerful dukedom in the north. While the noble girls swarmed Lucas and Will's older brother, Will hid in a quiet corner to drink tea. His childhood friend Letty found him and teased him for being an old man who hated parties, but she sat with him anyway, glad to escape the fake smiles of the crowd. After the party, Lucas and Will's brother pulled Will aside for a serious talk. The north was suffering from a brutal cold snap, and their crops were failing. Will's drought-resistant wheat wasn't enough to survive the freezing temperatures. Luckily, Will had a backup plan, a new crop he called pompt, which was essentially a potato. He explained that these tubers could grow in poor soil and survive the biting cold. To prove they were edible, he served them boiled with butter. Despite their muddy appearance, Lucas and his brother were impressed by how filling and tasty they were. Will agreed to send seed potatoes to the north to save the starving people. Feeling burnt out from all the work, Will decided to take a much-needed break. He spent his days napping, eating sausages at the local market, and reading books in a hammock in the elven forest. However, he couldn't stop his brain from coming up with new ideas. He and Theo experimented with leather, realizing they could enchant the raw material before turning it into clothes. This allowed them to make stylish everyday outfits like coats, boots, and hats that had the same defensive power as heavy iron armor. Will made custom enchanted gear for his entire family and even sent some to the king. The government decided to keep these super clothes a secret to avoid starting a war with jealous neighboring countries, but the royal family started wearing them daily for protection. Princess Flora even wrote to Will, telling him how much she loved her new outfit. As they continued to exchange letters about books and life, Will realized he had found a true friend in the princess, even from far away. Determined to face the mysteries of the forest, William visited the hidden elven village to ask Lucelina and the elder what had really happened to their home. The elder explained that the great sea of trees is home to terrifying monsters, but the legendary world tree used to keep them away with its holy energy. However, a dark force had recently cut off the tree's connection to the world's energy veins, causing it to wither and the forest to fall into darkness. The elves had stayed behind as long as possible to protect it, but they eventually had to flee with a young sapling to save their race. Hearing about their secret struggle, William felt a deep sense of responsibility. The elder noted that the recent droughts were likely caused by the world tree's weakness affecting the climate. While the sapling was growing in its new home, it would thrive much faster if planted on a cross point, a place where massive energy veins intersect. The elder revealed that such a spot existed in the unmapped wilderness south of the Fairchild land. William decided right then that when he became a baron, he would claim that wild, dangerous territory as his own to build a sanctuary for the world tree. Meanwhile, William's little sister, Sophia, was feeling a bit lonely. Between building workshops and inventing medicine, William hadn't had much time for her. Even her friend Mabel was now a busy manager at the workshop. To make it up to her, William agreed to take Sophia to the elven village. Sophia was mesmerized by the beautiful elves and their magical treehouses. While they were there, the elder noticed something incredible about Sophia. She wasn't just a water mage like everyone thought. She was actually a trimagia, a rare talent capable of using water, fire, and wind magic. Since human teachers couldn't handle such rare power, the elder offered to personally train Sophia, giving her a path to become a legendary mage. Back at the manor, William's father began teaching him the ropes of being a lord. He explained that a good leader doesn't just collect taxes. They create jobs and keep prices low. He praised William for letting local town shops handle the mass production of his soap and syringes, which kept the local economy booming. He also revealed that William was actually quite rich. A portion of the workshop's massive profits had been going into a private bank account for him. William was shocked to learn he had a fortune stashed away, and even more surprised to find out that Oliver, his stylish manager, had been secretly handling all his personal finances. Oliver had even been negotiating construction contracts with neighboring lands and convincing the stubborn dwarves to accept fair pay for their work. Realizing how much his friends were doing behind the scenes, William felt more ready than ever to lead. He vowed to use his growing wealth and talent to transform the southern wilderness into a thriving home for his people and the world tree. The elves planned to scout the dangerous southern lands for a place to plant their new world tree, and were worried about them running into bandits or monsters. To help keep them safe, he decided to make some high-quality gear as a thank you gift for both the elves and the dwarves who had helped his family. He headed to his workshop with his assistant Theo and used his magic to create special leather. For the dwarves who work in extreme heat, he crafted aprons, gloves, and boots with major heat resistance. Theo used his duplication skill to help finish 10 full sets. The next day, Will got his father's permission to gift the gear. When he visited the dwarf village, the leader was incredibly moved. He explained that many blacksmiths have to quit due to bad burns, so this gear was a lifesaver. He was so touched by the family's kindness that he officially declared Will's family friends of the dwarves, promising they would stand by them even if monsters attacked. Afterward, Will headed to the hidden elf village. He gave the scouts leather armor enchanted with resistance against cuts and stabs. Though the elves tried to pay, Will insisted it was a gift. The elder accepted and thanked him, calling him a savior. While at the village, Will checked on his sister Sophie's progress. The elder revealed that Sophie was doing amazing and would soon learn composite magic, a secret elven technique that combines different elements. Will was surprised to hear that Sophie felt a bit insecure compared to her genius brothers and wanted to prove she could be useful in a fight. Even though Will didn't want his little sister in danger, he understood that in their world, everyone has to do their part to protect the people. He paid the elder for the lessons, insisting on it so his family's honor stayed intact, and headed home. Back at the estate, Will's dad gave him another lesson on ruling. He explained how they run a local job training program for women and a school for orphans so they can learn to read, write, and find work. Will had already been visiting the orphanage to make toys for the kids, and his dad praised him for it. They took a break for tea, and the conversation turned to the future. His dad mentioned that while Will's older brother, Ed, would eventually take over the family lands, Will would have to build his own territory from scratch. They even joked about marriage. His dad mentioned that Will's friend Letty, the daughter of a neighboring count, could be a match since their families weren't obsessed with status. However, Will's mom popped into the room and teased him, revealing that Letty actually thinks of Will more like a little brother. Will felt a bit annoyed since he's technically older than her, but the lighthearted moment made him realize how lucky he was to have such a supportive family as he prepared for the challenges ahead. Will went to the elf forest and spotted his friend Oliver sketching near the entrance. Oliver, who usually manages Will's finances, was so focused on his art that he didn't even notice Will approaching. Will realized that Oliver had a sharp intuition because he felt drawn to this specific spot, even though the elves used magic to keep the village hidden. After getting permission from the elf leaders, Lucelina and the Elder, Will invited Oliver inside. Oliver was blown away by the elven way of life. He didn't just care about their looks. He admired how they lived in harmony with nature, their beautiful pottery, and their soulful music. While soaking in the beauty of the village, Oliver had a sudden realization about how true beauty comes from the heart and the connections between people. Right then, a bright light covered him and he passed out. The elder explained that Oliver had awakened as an apostle, a special helper meant to support Will. When Oliver woke up, he was shaky because a massive amount of information had just been dumped into his brain. They took him to the World Tree, where the elder read a prophecy describing Oliver as a joker or a jester, someone who speaks the truth and acts as a secret weapon using deep wisdom and knowledge from another world. It turned out Oliver gained a skill called the Akashic Records, which is basically a database of all knowledge in the universe, including info from Will's past life in Japan. This skill is so intense it usually makes people go crazy, but Oliver's sharp mind as a merchant allowed him to process it. He even started using modern terms like branding and cheat skills, promising to use this godlike knowledge to help Will build his territory and manage his business. A few days later, the workshop crew took a break for a picnic on a high hill overlooking the land. Will's sister Sophie joined them along with his assistants Theo, Carpenter, Isle, and Mabel. Oliver stayed behind to rest since his new brain powers were exhausting. They hiked up the steep hill, and while the non-magical workers got tired, Will and Theo used magic to keep their energy up. At the top, they enjoyed a massive spread of bread, jam, ham, and tea while looking out over the beautiful scenery. Even though life was getting busy with big destinies and ancient prophecies, Will felt happy just sitting in the grass, eating sandwiches with his friends and family, enjoying a simple day off. One day, Carpenter mentioned a village struggling because of a deep valley that forced everyone to take a massive detour just to reach the main road. Since it wasn't on a major trade route, the government hadn't bothered with it. Will decided to help, and after getting his father's permission to do some unofficial construction, headed to the site with his assistant Theo and their guard Ophelia. The valley wasn't incredibly deep, but a rushing river at the bottom made it impossible to cross. Will decided to use his production skill to build a bridge. Thanks to his massive mana reserves, which had grown even larger since being recognized by the World Tree, he was able to carry a huge amount of timber. Even Theo, who was getting pretty good at magic himself, was shocked by how much Will could handle. A crowd of locals gathered to watch, wondering if the young lord was building a fort. Instead, Will visualized a sturdy wooden bridge capable of holding heavy wagons. He activated his skill, a magic circle glowed, and instantly a magnificent bridge appeared. The villagers went wild with joy, and the village elder even teared up, explaining how this would change their lives now that they could finally get their goods to market easily. Back home, Will's dad was impressed but joked that there were plenty of other spots that needed bridges too. Oliver, Will's business-minded friend, immediately chimed in, saying they should start charging a fee for these big projects. Will also spent some time helping the Northern Duke by sending over simple recipes for pumped potatoes, like fries and potato salad. Since people in the kingdom weren't used to eating tubers, Will's talented chef baker refined the recipes to make them more appealing. A few days later, a cold, rainy morning left Will feeling a bit down. Without umbrellas or electricity in this world, rainy days usually meant staying inside by candlelight. To pass the time, he sat in the music room and played a quiet, beautiful song on the piano from his past life in Japan. His sister Sophie walked in and was moved to tears by the melody. Will panicked and pretended he just made it up on the spot. Soon, their mom joined in on the violin and Theo brought his harp. The family jam session turned the gloomy day around and made Will feel less alone in his big mission to save the world. Later, Will held a meeting with his workshop crew at their new cafe. They feasted on Baker's latest creation, American-style apple pie, which reminded Will of his old life. During the meeting, Oliver proposed branding their work. He designed a stylish logo using the letters W and F, and they officially named the business Will and Fellows Workshop. To keep the momentum going, Will wondered if he could enchant metal the same way he did leather. He wanted to make better gear for the elf scouts who were heading into dangerous territory. He experimented on some dwarf-made iron and successfully enchanted it with piercing and cutting boost. After Theo duplicated the enchanted ingots, Will took them to the dwarves to be forged into elite swords. A few days later, the dwarf leader invited Will and Theo to a celebration to mark the completion of the first sword. The dwarves were already deep into their ale and beer, partying in the village square. The leader showed off a stunning, razor-sharp blade that a blacksmith had worked on until he literally collapsed from exhaustion. Even though Will and Theo were too young to drink, they sat with their friends, eating salty grilled meat and sausages, enjoying the rowdy, happy atmosphere of a job well done. Will wanted to find new materials to craft better gear, so he asked the dwarf leader for advice. He learned that deep inside the Forest of Spirits, there are layers, the shallow, middle, and deep level. The middle level holds rare mithril, a super light but strong metal, but it's guarded by tougher monsters. Will's father and his knight commander, Liam, agreed that exploring the middle level would be a great way to train the younger knights and gather resources. With a team of knights and a squad of elves led by Lucelina, Will headed into the forest. Lucelina, now a powerful mage, insisted on coming along to protect Will, whom the elves view as a savior. As they pushed into the darker, denser middle level, they were ambushed by a giant demon boar. Liam didn't even flinch. He took the massive beast down with a single, effortless swing of his sword. Will was impressed, though Liam joked that it was all thanks to Will's high-quality enchanted steel. Next, a pack of demon wolves attacked. This time, the younger knights took the lead. They used fire and wind magic to stun the pack before moving in with their swords. A few knights got nipped, but Will's enchanted leather and chainmail armor held up perfectly. Not a single tooth pierced the gear. After the fight, Will noticed strange glowing orbs where the monsters die. Lucelina explained these are mana cores, crystallized negative emotions. Will felt a strange energy from them and decided to keep a few for research. Back at the estate, Will's father was thrilled. Being able to fight in the middle level without a single injury was a game changer for the territory's safety. He planned to report this success to the king, which made Will a bit nervous about getting too famous. Will then took the mana cores to the world tree. As he approached, the tree's energy vibrated and purified the dark orbs, turning them from murky black to a clear, holy green. While he isn't sure what to do with purified cores, yet he tucked them away for later. Soon after, the team discovered rich iron and copper veins in the forest. Since transporting heavy ore through a monster-filled forest is a nightmare, Will and his assistant Theo used their storage magic to carry tons of rocks back instantly. This massive shortcut jump-started the local economy, making the Fairchild lands wealthier than ever. Meanwhile, Will's friend Oliver took charge of the business side. He officially branded everything under the Will and Fellows logo. To stop fakes from appearing, they hired a talented dwarf named Constant to craft intricate metal logo plates that are nearly impossible to copy. Oliver even organized a marketing day. He dressed Will, his sister Sophie, and their friend Letty in trendy workshop clothes and had them walk through the town square. The plan worked perfectly. People were starstruck by the stylish group. At one point, the wind blew Letty's hat away and Will caught it with a quick jump. Letty teased him, admitting she used to see him as a chubby little brother, but now he's become a cool, reliable leader. As they walked through the cheering crowds, Oliver smirked. Their brand was officially the talk of the town. June arrived, bringing a massive wheat harvest. The Fairchild lands were overflowing with grain, and thanks to the new paved roads Will and his workshop built, transporting the crops was smoother than ever. While the rest of the kingdom celebrated a record-breaking year, the north was still struggling with the cold. To help out, Will decided to send his specially developed, frost-resistant potatoes to the northern territories, entrusting the distribution to the Levant Company. During a trip to inspect the golden wheat field, Will's friend Oliver, the business-minded merchant, explained that while wheat prices might drop due to the surplus, the Fairchild economy was actually stronger than ever. The new roads and bridges had boosted trade and created so many jobs that tax revenue was way up. Oliver's passion for using business to improve lives even earned him the nickname Professor Oliver from Princess Flora in her letters. Soon after, Will's family organized a joint training session with the neighboring Cardiff family. Since the roads were now so good, the trip between their lands took only 90 minutes instead of 3 hours. Will, his sister Sophie, and his assistant Theo joined the knights as they headed into the middle level of the Forest of Spirit. Sophie, trained by the Elven Elder, proved she was a powerhouse by unleashing a massive tempest wind spell that sent a whole pack of giant demon boars flying. Even Will's childhood friend Letty showed off her skills, using a flaming magic sword technique to take down the beast. During the mission, Theo spotted a strange, glowing rock that turned out to be mithril, a legendary metal worth 10 times more than gold. Will and Theo used their storage magic to haul a massive amount of the ore back home. Realizing this discovery would make his family incredibly wealthy, Will's father decided to share some of the mithril with the Cardiff family as a gesture of friendship. Will wanted to use the mithril to make a special gift for Letty. Since mithril is perfect for conducting magic, he realized it could hold up to 4 different enchantments, double what normal iron could handle. He and Theo spent days in the workshop, pouring their massive mana reserves into the metal to raise its quality to the highest level. Instead of just using a magic skill to poof the sword into existence, they decided to hammer the blade by hand, believing that hard work and focus would make it even stronger. As they finished the final strikes, the blade glowed with a perfect silver light. It was enchanted with boosted piercing, cutting, durability, and a special magic sword power-up designed specifically for Letty's fighting style. Just as they finished, they realized Letty, Sophie, and the rest of the crew had been watching them work. Letty was deeply moved by the beautiful craftsmanship and the effort Will put into her new weapon, promising to train even harder to be worthy of such a legendary sword. The wheat harvest is finally coming in, and the big summer solstice festival is right around the corner. Will's dad drops a bombshell at breakfast. Princess Flora is coming to visit personally to celebrate the record-breaking harvest and thank the family for saving the kingdom from the drought. The town of Northernford is buzzing with excitement, and Will's friend Oliver is already planning to use the visit as a marketing goldmine by gifting the princess some Will and Fellows gear. To make things even more lively, Will's mom decides to invite their friend Letty to join the party too. While the town prepares for the princess, Will focuses on mastering mithril. Since the elves found a new vein of the rare metal, Will has plenty to work with. He experiments and discovers he can pack 4 different enchantments into mithril instead of the usual 2. For weapons, he adds boosts for piercing, cutting, durability, and a heavy-hitting impact power. For armor, he manages to add resistance against stabs, cuts, hits, and even magic. He decides to give these elite sets to both his family's knights and the elf scout. When the king hears about Will's incredible crafting skills, he orders the tech to be kept a secret for now, but promises to promote Will to a higher noble rank Viscount once the news eventually goes public. Princess Flora finally arrives. Traveling on the new paved roads Will helped build. She's amazed that the trip took only 4 days instead of the usual week, and she credits Will's vision for making the kingdom safer and wealthy. She isn't just there for a party, though. Her father, the king, sent her to see what kind of leader Will is becoming. The king wants to use Will's success to show other nobles that focusing on the economy and technology is just as important as swords and magic. At the welcoming party, Flora meets the rest of the crew. She is shocked when she sees a stunningly beautiful girl next to Will, only for her friend Letty to laugh and explain that it's actually Oliver in one of his famous disguises. Flora, who used to feel insecure because she couldn't use combat magic, finds a kindred spirit in Letty. They bond over how Will is a total troublemaker who constantly does impossible things and keeps everyone on their toes. The next day, Will notices a new problem. The harvest is so huge that the local mills can't keep up with grinding all the wheat into flour. Since the drought has dried up the rivers, traditional watermills aren't working well. Will decides to introduce a brand new invention, the windmill. He heads to a windy hill with his team, and to his surprise, Princess Flora and Oliver tag along to watch. Using a blueprint Oliver pulled from his Akashic Records database, Will visualizes a massive Dutch-style windmill. He pours his massive mana into the materials, and in a flash of light, a giant windmill stands on the hill. As the sails start spinning in the breeze, the princess is blown away by how Will's magic directly makes life better for regular people. Will and his assistant Theo manage to build 4 windmills in a single day, ensuring the people will have plenty of cheap flour and bread. Flora watches in awe, realizing that Will's production magic is truly the key to a happy and prosperous kingdom. It was finally time for the summer solstice festival, and the main square in Northernford was packed. People had traveled from all over just to catch a glimpse of Princess Flora, the legendary doll princess. When she stepped onto the stage, the crowd went wild. She didn't look like a lifeless doll anymore. She was glowing and full of energy. In her speech, she gave a massive shout-out to Will, telling everyone that the king himself was incredibly grateful for Will's drought-resistant wheat, which had saved the entire kingdom from starvation. The crowd erupted in cheers, especially when she praised Will's father for the new stone roads and the impressive windmills on the hill. Flora even did some secret marketing for Will by wearing clothes and carrying a bag made at his workshop. His friend Oliver was thrilled, whispering that the Will and Fellows brand was about to blow up and the Windmill Hill would become a huge tourist spot. The festival reached a peak when Will's mother offered the first stalks of wheat to the goddess, flanked by Princess Flora and Letty. Seeing the 3 of them together, the saint of the land, the princess, and the brave noble girl, was so beautiful the locals said the day would become a legend. When the festival ended, it was time for Flora to head back to the capital. The goodbye was emotional. Flora had never had real friends before, and she shared a big hug with Letty and Sophie. When she got to Will, she dropped the formal act for a second. She told him she had a great time and made him promise to visit her in the capital soon. Will was a bit flustered, but as he watched her carriage roll away on the smooth roads he built, he felt proud of how much his work had changed her life. With the party over, Will had to focus on a serious mission. The elves were preparing an expedition to the dangerous southern lands to find a crosspoint where the Earth's energy was strong enough to plant a new world tree. This area was a wild, lawless place filled with monsters and bandits. Will was worried, but since he was a noble, he couldn't legally send his knights outside their borders. However, his head knight, Liam, and 10 other elite soldiers stepped up with a clever plan. They would take a vacation and go as private volunteers. They wanted to pay the elves back for helping them in the forest earlier that year. Will was moved by their loyalty. To make sure they stayed safe, he brought the knights to his workshop and gave them elite mithril weapons and armor, each packed with 4 powerful enchantments. He told them that since there were no doctors in the wild lands, their gear had to be the best. Seeing his friends and soldiers risk their lives for his mission made Will realize he couldn't keep his secrets anymore. He decided it was time to tell his father everything. Will sat his father down and confessed the whole truth. He was a reincarnated soul from another world with memories of a past life, and he had been officially recognized by the World Tree as a savior. He admitted he had been scared to tell them because he didn't want to be seen as a monster or lose his place in the family. He also warned his father that being a savior meant he would eventually be a target for dark forces, which could put the whole family in danger. Instead of being angry or scared, Will's father hugged him. He told Will that whether he was a savior or a traveler from another world, he was his son, and nothing would ever change that. He was actually proud that Will was chosen to protect the world. He even revealed that the king already suspected Will was a savior because of his miracle invention. His father promised to support Will's plan to eventually take over the southern wildlands as his own territory so they could protect the World Tree together. With his family's full support, Will finally felt the weight lift off his shoulders, ready to face whatever darkness was coming next. William told his father that Theo and Oliver were actually the apostles of the Savior. He apologized for keeping it a secret, but the Count wasn't angry. He was just glad William had friends he could trust. When William told his mother, Mary, she reacted the same way, a quick scolding followed by a warm hug. The family soon traveled to the Elven Forest to see the World Tree. The village elder and chief Lucelina welcomed them, and the elder apologized for the secrecy. William's parents were understanding, and the elder led them through a magical entrance inside a massive tree. Inside was a beautiful hidden garden with the glowing World Tree sapling at its center. The elder showed them the ancient stone tablet and explained that while 2 apostles had been found, the other 5 hadn't appeared yet. Interestingly, the elder mentioned that family members don't usually become apostle. Instead, apostles are those who swear loyalty or choose to spend their lives by the Savior's side. However, being near the Savior boosts a family's natural talents, which explained why William's siblings, Eddie and Sophie, were becoming so incredibly powerful. The next day, William told his veteran knights and his head craftsman, Smith, the truth about his identity. The knights were shocked but honored to serve the Savior. The Count also officially backed William's gift of mithril gear and ensured the men would be taken care of if they were hurt during their mission. Soon after, the exploration team headed south on horseback to find the energy crosspoint. Meanwhile, in the capital, Princess Flora returned home a changed person. King Edgar was thrilled to see her so happy and confident. Flora and her guard, August, reported that William was beloved by his people and remained humble despite his genius. They also mentioned his latest invention, a massive windmill, and how deeply the elves and dwarves trusted him. The king realized that if the elves were gathering around William, he truly was the savior. This also meant the darkness was growing stronger, so the king decided to start distributing William's enchanted gear to the royal knights to prepare for trouble. Back at the workshop, William felt guilty. He worried that because he chose to be a producer instead of a hero or sage, when he reincarnated, he wasn't strong enough to protect his friends in the dangerous south. Theo and Oliver cheered him up, reminding him that his inventions and medicines had already saved countless lives. The very next day, while heading out to gather iron ore, William felt a strange power surge through him. Suddenly, he unlocked a teleportation skill. He tested it out and instantly vanished, appearing at a mining site deep in the forest. It was exhausting and made him a bit dizzy, but it worked. He then tried teleporting to the elven village, appearing out of thin air and shocking everyone. The elven elder was amazed, explaining that time-space magic was incredibly rare. William spent the next day testing his limits. He discovered he could teleport anywhere he had visited before, even as far as the capital, though long distances drained his mana quickly. With this new power, William realized he didn't have to stay behind anymore. He could finally join the exploration team in the wildlands and keep them safe. William immediately went to his father to share the news about his new teleportation skill. The Count was stunned, as that kind of magic was basically a myth, but he was proud of how much William had already done as the savior. William explained that he could only teleport to places he had already visited, and he wanted to use this power to join the exploration team in the dangerous south during the day and return home at night. His father was worried since William was only 13, but he agreed on one condition. William had to take his guard, Ophelia, with him. They tested it out and realized that as long as they held hands, William could teleport both of them at once. The next day, after a quick lunch, William and Ophelia teleported to Tintern, the southernmost town of the kingdom. To avoid scaring people, they popped in just outside the city gates and walked in. Ophelia handled the paperwork with the local governor, who welcomed them warmly. By evening, the main exploration group of knights and elves arrived on horseback. They were shocked to see William already there waiting for them, but once he explained the teleportation magic, they were amazed. James, the veteran knight, joked that William was becoming capable of just about anything. After a quick meeting, William and Ophelia teleported back home for the night, leaving the team to rest at the local inn. Meanwhile, a dwarf blacksmith named Iacchus reflected on how much his life had changed. He had fled his monster-infested home in the Great Forest years ago, losing many friends along the way. He felt a deep debt to the Fairchild family for giving his people a home and food when they had nothing. He was especially impressed by William, who treated the dwarves with genuine respect and valued their craftsmanship over his own magical production skills. Now that the knights had found mithril ore in the forest, Iacchus and the other dwarves were back to doing what they loved most, working with high-quality metal to support the family that saved them. The following morning, William grabbed a bunch of freshly baked meat pies from the castle kitchen and teleported back to the team. He surprised everyone by pulling out chairs, tables, and hot food from his magical storage. He realized that his storage skill had leveled up alongside his teleportation. It now acted like a stasis field, keeping food exactly as hot as it was when he first put it in. The team enjoyed a luxury meal in the middle of the wilderness, which kept their spirits high as they pushed into unknown territory. As they moved south, the group was ambushed by a pack of magic wolves. Thanks to the elves' sharp senses and William's high-tier mithril gear, the knights easily blocked the attack while the elves took the monsters down from a distance. Later, they encountered giant magic deer that were tough enough to shrug off arrows, but one of the elven mages finished them off with a massive whirlpool spell. Even though the monsters were getting stronger, the team stayed safe because of the enchanted armor William had provided. Eventually, they reached a massive river and followed it until they found a large lake. The elves sensed that the crosspoint for the world tree was close, but the area was turning into a swamp. The humidity rose, and the team started struggling with swarms of bugs and leeches. Seeing everyone exhausted and miserable in the muddy terrain, James decided to call it a day early. William felt bad seeing his friends so drained by the environment, so as he teleported home for the night, he started brainstorming a way to use his production skills to make their stay in the swamp much more comfortable. After returning home to his workshop, William couldn't stop thinking about how miserable his friends were in the swamp. He wanted them to have a good night's sleep, so he got to work. While taking a break at his workshop's cafe, the baker, Mr. Baker, gave him a fresh cherry pie to try. It was delicious, and William realized that good food was exactly what the exhausted team needed. He asked Mr. Baker to bake a large batch for the knights and elves the next morning. Back in his room, William brainstormed with his friend Theo. He remembered mosquito nets from his past life and used his production skills to weave hemp into fine mesh nets to keep out flying bugs. But the ground was still a mess. He realized that since his teleportation was a form of space magic, he might be able to stretch the space inside a tent. He focused hard, imagining a small tent that was huge on the inside. It worked. He created expansion tents that looked normal from the outside, but had enough room for 4 comfortable wooden beds inside. With Theo's help, they stayed up making enough tents for the entire 25-person team. Meanwhile, William's father, the Count, traveled to the capital to meet King Edgar. He told the king everything, that William was officially the savior and that the world tree was dying, causing the world's weird weather. He explained that a crosspoint for the tree had been found in the dangerous southern wildlands, and that William wanted to claim that land as his own territory to protect the tree. The king was impressed by William's bravery but noted that William was only 13, while lords usually have to be 18. However, the king promised to find a way to let William rule the area early, fully backing the boy's mission. The next morning, William and his guard Ophelia teleported back to the swamp with the new gear and the fresh cherry pies. The knights and elves were exhausted and grumpy from a sleepless night of fighting off bugs. When William showed them the new tents, they couldn't believe their eyes. Stepping inside a tiny tent and finding a spacious room with actual beds felt like a miracle. The team's mood instantly flipped. Even though the trek through the muddy swamp was gross, and they had to fight off waves of giant, dog-sized magic frogs, everyone stayed sharp because they knew a comfortable bed was waiting for them. During their lunch break, William handed out the warm cherry pies. The sweet treat was a huge hit, giving the team the energy boost they needed to keep pushing toward the center of the wildland. The next afternoon, the group continued their search for the crosspoint. The elves could feel they were getting close, but the humid swamp was making everyone miserable. When they finally stopped to camp, William pulled out his magically expanded tents. The knights and elves were amazed. From the outside, they looked like tiny normal tents, but inside they were huge, bug-free rooms with comfortable beds. Everyone finally got a good night's sleep. After dropping off some hot tea, William and Ophelia teleported back home. At the workshop, William checked in with the baker, who was happy to hear the cherry pies were a hit. Later that night, William went through some plants he'd gathered from the fertile lands near the big river. Using his appraisal skill, he discovered he'd found sweet basil. It wasn't native to this kingdom, but William knew it was the king of herbs and would go perfectly with tomato and cheese dishes. The next morning, William teleported back to the camp. The team looked much better after sleeping in real beds rather than on the damp ground. They spent the day pushing further into the swamp, fighting off giant magic frogs in the sticky heat. Despite their hard work, they still couldn't find the exact spot. After 2 more days of searching, the team was reaching their limit. James, the veteran knight, pulled William aside to suggest they head back soon to make sure they had enough supplies and energy for the return trip. Orasniel, the elven leader, was frustrated because he knew they were right on top of it. He realized the only place they hadn't checked was the large island in the middle of the lake, but it was too far to swim and the water was dangerous. William realized that since he could see the island, he could teleport there. He grabbed Orasniel and Ophelia, and in a flash, they were standing on the island. Orasniel immediately felt a massive surge of energy. This was definitely the place. They pushed through the brush to the center of the island and found a beautiful, open clearing where the flowers were blooming, but no trees grew because the spiritual energy was too intense. Orasniel knelt in prayer, confirming they had finally found the crosspoint. They teleported back to the shore to share the news, and the exhausted team felt a huge weight lift off their shoulders. James praised the elves for their dedication, and the 2 groups shared a moment of genuine mutual respect. With the mission a success, they moved back to dry land to prepare for the trip home. William teleported to the elven village to give the good news to Chief Lucelina and the Elder, who were overjoyed that the path to saving the world tree was finally clear. Back in the capital, an elderly production mage named Master Pyrrha reflected on William's growth. He had been William's tutor years ago, and had realized even then that the boy was a once-in-a-century genius. He admired William's humility and his habit of using his powers for others rather than himself. He was proud to see William succeeding in the wildlands and looked forward to sharing more advanced knowledge with him soon. The next morning, William teleported back to the camp and found a crowd of new people. Gilbert explained that a group of bandits and illegal slave traders had tried to ambush them during the night, thinking the team was small. Because of the expanded tents, the bandits didn't realize how many fighters were actually inside. The knights and elves had easily crushed the attackers. They then raided the bandits' nearby camp and rescued 29 prisoners, 14 elves and 15 human women and children. One elven woman, Irenrul, had been injured while trying to save her sister. William offered to teleport her to the elven forest for healing. Even though many elves are wary of humans because of the slave trade, she trusted William because of his reputation as the savior. After dropping her off, William went to his father to report the situation. The Count was furious about the slave traders and immediately agreed to take in all the rescued people, regardless of whether they were human or elf. To get everyone home safely, William's father provided 3 large carriages and a wagon. William tucked them all into his magical storage and headed back to the swamp. He also brought extra food for the expanded group. Even though he was exhausted from all the teleporting, he was glad his powers could help bring everyone home to safety. The journey back from the southern wildlands was smooth. With the rescued people safely tucked into the carriages William kept in his magical storage, the team headed north. After a few minor skirmishes with monsters, they finally crossed back into the Fairchild family's territory. Relief washed over everyone as they reached the border. The veteran knight James and the scout Gilbert told William they could handle the final stretch to the city on their own, as they were now in safe land. The elven leader, Orasniel, also thanked William, promising to look after the rescued humans and elves. After saying their goodbyes, William and his guard Ophelia teleported back home to Northernford. Exhausted, William crashed in his room and found a message from his father. The Count praised him for the successful mission and mentioned that King Edgar was fully on board to support William's future territory in the south. The next morning, William slept in late, finally feeling the weight of the journey leave his body. He spent a quiet afternoon at his workshop's cafe, catching up with his friends and fellow craftsmen. Later, his sister Sophie and friend Theo joined him for a card game. Sophie was a bit grumpy that William had been keeping secrets, but he promised to involve her more in the future. The simple joy of playing games and laughing with friends was exactly the mental break he needed. The following morning, William met with his father in his office. The Count shared the details of his meeting with the king. King Edgar was thrilled to confirm William was the savior and was fascinated by his teleportation magic. Most importantly, the king officially agreed to let William claim the southern wildland. Since William was only 13 and the legal age to rule was 18, the king promised to find a special way to let him take charge early. The biggest challenge now was finding enough people to move to the new, empty land, but the Count promised to help with recruitment and resources. A few days later, the main exploration team finally arrived back in Northernford. The Count and William met them at the gates with a hero's welcome. The knights were given bonuses, and the rescued prisoners were taken to a local inn to recover. To help them settle in, William and Theo used their production skills to quickly build new houses for the refugees. Seeing the survivors finally feel safe and happy made all the hard work worth it. With the mission officially a success, it was time to report to the capital. Instead of a long carriage ride, William, his father, and the knight commander Liam used teleportation. They arrived at their mansion in the capital in an instant, shocking Liam with the speed of the magic. The next day, they headed to the royal palace to meet King Edgar. The king welcomed them warmly and was eager to hear the details of the southern mission. William explained how they found the energy, Crosspoint, on an island in the middle of a lake. The king was impressed, noting that without William's teleportation, the mission likely would have failed. He praised William's humility for giving credit to the knights and elves instead of taking it all for himself. With the king's full blessing, the plan to save the world tree and build a new home in the south was officially in motion. The king was impressed that William wanted to claim the empty, dangerous southern lands just to save the world tree and the elves. Since William was only 13 and couldn't officially become a lord yet, the king came up with a clever plan. He ordered the Fairchild family to develop the land, announcing that once William turned 18, he would be knighted and given the territory officially. This way, William could start working on it immediately with the full support of the king and his father, while avoiding any jealousy from other nobles who viewed the wildlands as a worthless, difficult place. The king also mentioned a rare loophole. If William graduated from the Royal Academy early, he could become a lord before 18. William wasn't thrilled about the idea of more school, but he appreciated the king's support. To protect William from gold-digging nobles, the king planned to make it public that his future territory was a dangerous wasteland, ensuring only someone truly loyal would want to be with him. The king joked that William was a bit clueless about girls, which made William's father laugh and apologize for his son's lack of romantic experience. Later, the king surprised William by bringing in an old friend, Erica, his former teacher. It turned out she was a top-tier national production mage who knew secret techniques kept under lock and key by the kingdom. Because William was the savior, the king allowed her to pass these secrets down to him. William was overjoyed to see her again. She explained that she couldn't teach him these things back in his home village because the law required secret recipes to be taught only within the royal castle. Erica took William to a high-security workshop inside the palace to teach him how to make under the guidance of his former teacher Erica. Will successfully crafts a fire magic stone by pouring his mana into a specialized vessel. Erica notices that Will's stones glow much brighter than normal because his massive mana reserves naturally create high-quality results. Will quickly masters the process, creating wind, water, and earth stones as well. Erica explains that while these stones are usually turned into bombs by encasing them in iron, they are incredibly unstable and explode with the slightest bump. Will, wanting to use this technology to improve daily life rather than just for war, suggests a solution from his past life, stabilizing the liquid mana inside the stone by absorbing it into a porous material, similar to how dynamite was invented. Erica is impressed by the revolutionary idea, but insists on performing the dangerous experiments herself. She refuses to let Will risk his life and promises to give him full credit when she reports the results to the king. Before Will leaves the capital, Erica gives him a graduation gift, a magic gun. This rare piece of lost technology was found in ancient ruins and can fire spells using magic stones without any risk of exploding. She tells Will it will protect him in the dangerous southern wildlands. Will accepts the legendary weapon with deep gratitude and heads back to the Fairchild estate. Back home, Will realizes that the biggest problem with magic stones is that the raw, empty stones needed to make them are extremely rare. He remembers the mana cores he gathered from monsters, which were purified by the world tree. He discovers that these purified cores work perfectly as magic stone vessels. Even better, they are naturally stable and don't explode when dropped. After a secret test in a field proves they are safe, Will shares the discovery with his assistants, Theo and Oliver. Oliver and Theo scold Will for testing the cores alone, but are excited by the potential. They realize that with the world tree's help, they can turn monster drops into a steady supply of safe energy for developing Will's new territory. Will decides to ask the king for permission to use this secret technology for construction and daily tools, hoping he can reach Erica in time to tell her she doesn't have to perform those dangerous experiments anymore. Despite the risks ahead, Will feels lucky to have a team that cares more about his safety than his savior status. King Edgar II didn't waste any time. After meeting with William, he officially announced that the Fairchild family would lead the development of the southern wastelands and that William would eventually become the lord of that territory. This immediately riled up the conservative nobles, led by Count Waterford. These guys are old school. They think the only thing that matters for a noble is sword fighting and magic. They marched into the throne room to complain, arguing that giving a kid a dangerous, empty wasteland was either too harsh or a waste of resources. The king, who knows the North is getting stronger while his own kingdom stays stuck in the past, didn't back down. He pointed out that William's production skills have already saved people with better crops and medicine. He told the nobles that if William actually manages to turn that wasteland into a thriving home, they'd have to admit his skills are the real deal. The conservatives agreed, thinking it was impossible. Little do they know the king is keeping the world tree and William's savior status a total secret to prevent a national panic. Meanwhile, the king is quietly amazed by William's progress. He just received word that William already invented those non-exploding magic stones using purified monster cores. Even the legendary mage Erica was shocked by how fast he pulled it off. The king sees William as a powerhouse for nation building, and his prime minister agrees, predicting that William will absolutely dominate the South since he won't have to worry about stepping on other nobles' toes in the middle of nowhere. Back at the Fairchild mansion, news of the Wasteland assignment caused a stir. Most nobles thought William had fallen out of favor with the king, so they stopped trying to set him up with their daughters. William was actually relieved to have the pushy girls leave him alone. However, true friends like the Cardiff family stepped up to offer help. William's father revealed that the king gave them permission to share some secrets with people they truly trust, though they're still keeping the savior part under wraps for safety. William decided to show his sister, Sophie, how the new magic stones work. He was shocked to find out how much she had grown as a mage. When she poured her mana into a core, it turned a brilliant red, and she even knew a rare anti-magic protection spell she learned from the elf. To test her power, William held her hand and used his teleportation magic to take them to a forest. He let her fire a magic gun using her stone, and the explosion was even bigger than his own. She then revealed she could use combined magic, creating a massive blast that shook the ground. William realized his little sister is now one of the strongest mages in the kingdom. With the official plans in place, the elves were ready to move the world tree to its new home. They told William to take it easy while the knights cleared out monsters, but William wanted to explore his future land personally. He planned to take his guards, Leah and Gil, but his assistants Theo and Oliver insisted on coming along too, not wanting him to face danger alone. Then, his childhood friend Letty and his sister Sophie cornered him. They had heard about the trip and demanded to join. William tried to say no because his teleportation magic usually requires holding hands, which limits him to 2 people. But Letty had a simple idea. What if we just grab onto your clothes? They tested it out and it worked perfectly. William felt a bit silly for not realizing that sooner, but he was happy to have the crew together. Since they'd be exploring a dangerous area with 6 people, William decided his next project was to build a solid, portable base, something better than a tent, where they could safely rest in the heart of the wasteland. To prepare for exploring the dangerous southern wastelands, William decided he needed something better than a tent. He remembered a trick from his past life and decided to build a high-tech carriage. He planned to expand the inside using space magic and keep the whole thing in his storage, only bringing it out when they arrive. First, he needed horses that wouldn't freak out during teleportation. He went to the Knight Commander Liam, who helped him test a few. Most horses panicked, but they found 2, a calm female and a very chill male, who didn't mind the sudden jumps at all. With the horses picked out, William got to work on the carriage. He built the group headed northeast into the grasslands and immediately ran into a pack of monster dogs. Letty drew her mithril sword with impressive grace, while Sophie stood ready with her staff. Sophie kicked things off by firing wind blades that took out 4 of the monsters instantly, and Letty finished the remaining 6 by weaving through their attacks and cutting them down without breaking a sweat. Suddenly, a massive aura appeared as a rare variant of the monster dog emerged. This special species was much larger and far more dangerous than the normal one. William, Theo, and Luna prepared to jump in, but Letty and Sophie insisted on handling it themselves. Letty's mithril sword flared with a deep crimson fire, while Sophie gathered so much mana that the air around her literally turned red. A rare phenomenon only top-tier mages can pull off. Sophie blasted the beast with a high-speed fire javelin, and though the monster survived and charged, Letty intercepted it. She blocked its claws with her flaming sword and ended the fight with one decisive strike. After the battle, Gil recovered a strange monster core from the variant. When William tried to use his appraisal skill, it came up as unreadable. Theo and Luna guessed it was a legendary material that William just wasn't experienced enough to identify yet. Letty and Sophie gifted the rare core to William, who promised to use it for something amazing once he figured out how to purify and handle it. The crew continued their trek in the high-tech carriage, enjoying a warm lunch of pork sauté that William had kept fresh in his storage magic. As they traveled further south toward the Black Soil region, they decided to thin out the local monster population to make things safer for the future settlers. Theo showed off his growth by opening a massive pitfall and impaling a pack of dogs with earth spikes. while Luna wiped out a group of wolves using a powerful gale spell. William realized his team was becoming so strong he barely needed to use his magic gun. As evening approached, William teleported the entire group and the horses back to the mansion in an instant. After seeing everyone off, he took a couple of days to rest but couldn't stay idle for long. He received a letter from his brother in the capital mentioning that the northern territories were facing a food shortage due to extreme cold. Wanting to help, William spent his afternoon in the workshop experimenting with plant genetics. By merging the traits of a cold-resistant root vegetable with regular wheat, he successfully created a new breed of cold-resistant wheat. Tired but satisfied, he decided to take a real break the next day and celebrated his success with a fresh slice of apple pie. While the Albion kingdom is stuck in its old ways, the Vandal Empire to the north has been booming by embracing new tech and trade. However, they've hit a massive crisis. A freak cold snap caused by the weakening of the world tree has ruined their crops. Even their hardy rye is failing, and their food reserves are running dry. Emperor Landeric V, a sharp and capable leader, ordered his officials to buy up wheat from Albion, even though the high demand is making prices skyrocket. The emperor was confused, though. He heard Albion was supposed to be suffering from a drought, yet they somehow have a surplus. His prime minister explained that Albion developed a new type of drought-resistant wheat that saved their harvest. On top of that, rumors are swirling about a new kind of potato being grown in Albion's northern territories to fight the cold. Realizing that the old-fashioned kingdom is suddenly making huge scientific leaps, the emperor ordered his spies to find out exactly what's going on. Unaware of the international stir he's causing, William headed back out to explore the southern wastelands with his crew. This time, they moved past the grasslands into a region with rich, black soil. Theo, the dwarf earth expert, confirmed the dirt is incredibly fertile and perfect for farming. William was thrilled, though he worried about finding enough people to work such a massive area. His elf and dwarf friends promised to bring their families to help, which took a bit of the weight off his shoulders. As they traveled deeper south, the heat became unbearable. Letty and the other girls were melting in the sun, but William was prepared. He flipped a switch in his high-tech carriage, activating a custom air conditioner he built using water magic stone. The cool breeze was a huge hit, even if his sister Sophie just rolled her eyes at his over-the-top invention. The peace didn't last long, as Luna sensed 3 massive magic boars charging toward them. These beasts are way tougher than the wolves they fought before. William decided to handle it himself to test his gear. He pulled out the magic gun Erica gave him and fired a shot powered by his own fire mana. It hit the lead boar, but didn't take it down instantly. For the second shot, he used a stone Sophie had charged with her massive mana pool. The power difference was insane. The blast completely vaporized the next boar in one hit. During the trip, the group's bond grew stronger. Letty even convinced the formal Theo to stop calling her Lady and just use her name, though the polite dwarf could only compromise on Miss Letty. William felt a deep sense of happiness. In his past life, he was alone, but now he has true friends from different races all working together. While taking a break for a pasta lunch, William spotted something strange shimmering in a grove of trees. It was a light, thin material that looked exactly like plastic from his old world. He discovered it was being produced by small insects that looked like silkworm. When Letty saw the bugs, she panicked and tried to slash them with her flaming sword, but William jumped in and blocked her with a magic protection barrier. William realized these plastic worms are a gold mine. The material they produce is light, strong, and doesn't rust. Unlike the plastic from his old world, his appraisal skill confirmed this version is biodegradable and eco-friendly. Since he couldn't leave such a valuable resource behind, he tested his storage magic and found he could actually store the live bugs safely. Excited by the discovery, the group cut the trip short so William could get the worms back to safety. Back at the workshop, Oliver helped him set up a secure greenhouse. William used his production skill to instantly build a glass and iron structure to house the insect. To keep the project a secret and provide jobs, they decided to hire the women William had previously rescued from slavers to care for the bugs. They knew these women would be loyal and keep the secret, marking the start of a brand new industry that would change their world forever. The women William rescued from the forest happily agreed to look after the plastic-producing worms. Their leader, a calm and capable woman in her 20s named Ira, took charge of the group. Unlike his friend Letty, who was terrified of bugs, Ira and the others handled them without a second thought, feeding them leaves and making sure they were comfortable. With the plastic industry in good hands, William and his crew spent some more time clearing monsters in the southern wasteland until a letter arrived from Princess Flora. The princess invited William, Letty, Sophie, and Oliver to the royal capital. William realized he had never actually taken the time to see the city properly, so he asked his father for permission. His father agreed, noting that the political tension had died down and it was safe for William to travel. Sophie was thrilled at the chance to visit city shops, and Oliver, who had recently stopped dressing in women's clothes after deciding true beauty comes from within, was also quick to join. After sending a messenger to Letty, who eagerly accepted. William told his guards and assistants to take a well-deserved break while he was away. The next day, William used his teleportation magic to bring the group directly into his room at the Fairchild Mansion in the capital. Oliver was barely even surprised by the instant travel, showing just how tough his mental state had become. Since the princess wouldn't be able to see them until the following day, the four of them headed out to sights. They visited a high-end accessory shop, where Sophie picked out some jewelry with Oliver's help. Interestingly, the other noble girls in the shop looked at William with pity and kept their distance, assuming he was in trouble because the king had banished him to the southern wasteland. William was just glad to be left alone. That evening, the family chef prepared a feast featuring a traditional raisin and walnut cake called bara bris. Oliver mentioned that, according to his Akashic record skill, this was a traditional snack from William's old world too. The next morning, the group headed to the castle. They met Princess Flora in the courtyard, where she greeted the girls warmly but gave William a bit of a hard time for not visiting more often since he can literally teleport. As they chatted, Flora admitted she was busy training officials to use commercial skills to improve the kingdom's economy. She complained that many nobles are still obsessed with swords and magic and look down on trade. However, she was proud to report that they were finally starting to track data from across the kingdom, which was a huge step for national management. She praised William's kindness, noting that he holds back his instant building skills so local carpenters don't lose their job. She told him that in the empty south, he can finally go all out without worrying about anyone else. The next day, the group visited a popular cafe for sweets. William enjoyed some scones with clotted cream and jam, a taste that reminded him of home. Afterward, they explored the massive central market. While browsing foreign stalls, William spotted a bag of small, brown grains labeled arrows. When he checked it with his appraisal skill, his heart skipped a beat. It was rice. After years of eating only bread and pasta, the sight of his old world staple food brought him to tears of joy. Meanwhile, in the Vandal Empire to the north, the Prime Minister received a shocking report from his spies. They confirmed that the drought-resistant wheat, the cold-resistant potatoes, and the cure for tuberculosis were all developed by the same person, a 13-year-old boy named William Fairchild. The spies had even checked the local taverns, where every craftsman insisted that William was a once-in-a-century genius. This news sent shockwaves through the empire. The nobles couldn't believe a backwards kingdom like Albion had produced such a scientific prodigy. The empire's second prince, Ernst, was particularly stunned. He desperately wanted to recruit William to the empire, but he knew it would be nearly impossible to flip a high-ranking noble's son. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about the massive potential William's brain held for the future of the world. The next morning in the capital, William and his friends caught a play at the theater. While William felt a bit out of place with the dramatic acting, Letty, Sophie, and even the usually serious Oliver were moved to tears. Afterward, they hiked up a hill for a stunning view of the castle, which everyone agreed was worth the effort. Before leaving the city, William finally got around to cooking the rice he found. It was a bit mushy since he didn't have a rice cooker, but the taste of home was so good it almost made him cry. The group visited Princess Flora one last time to say goodbye. She was a bit jealous of their fun trip, but reminded William to visit more often since he can literally teleport. With that, William had everyone grab onto his clothes and warped them all back to the Fairchild Mansion in an instant. After a week-long carriage journey turned into a split-second jump, everyone headed home to rest. William's father left a nice note telling him to take it easy, and William fell asleep the moment his head hit the pillow. A few days later, William introduced the rice to his workshop chef Baker. He showed Baker how to properly wash, soak, and steam the grains. Baker was impressed by the sweet flavor and immediately started brainstorming new recipes like pilaf and paella. William also asked Oliver to buy up every bit of rice the merchants could find, hoping to eventually grow it himself in the fertile southern land. With his energy back, William helped his father by using space magic to expand the storage warehouses for the knights. By stretching the internal dimensions without changing the outside, he tripled the storage space. The knights were stunned to see a small room suddenly turn into a massive hall, giving them plenty of room for all their new gear. When it was time to head back to the wasteland, William brought souvenirs for everyone, meat and spices for the dwarves, and jewelry for the knights. They teleported back to the Black Soil region and hopped into the air-conditioned carriage to beat the heat. They traveled all the way to a massive river William had spotted before. Theo confirmed the soil was perfect, and William realized they could use the river water to set up rice paddies. That evening, William took his friends Theo and Mabel to a dwarf festival. Since the area was safer now, the dwarves were celebrating with a massive feast of grilled meat and ale. Mabel, who was getting pretty close to Theo, hit it off with his family immediately. Even though the dwarven food was incredibly spicy, she toughed it out and earned their respect, officially becoming part of the crew. As autumn arrived, William's cold-resistant wheat was ready. He sent a large supply to the northern territories, where the Duke was incredibly grateful for the help. Even the king sent a letter praising William's endless talent, though he jokingly asked William to give him a heads-up before his next invention so he could prepare himself for the shock. However, things were getting serious behind the scenes. Oliver met with a contact from the Merchant Guild who confirmed that spies from the Vandal Empire were snooping around, asking questions about William. The Empire was starving due to crop failures and was desperate to find the genius behind Albion's new farming tech. Oliver decided to keep this a secret from William for now, wanting the boy to focus on his inventions while the adults handled the security and kept the talent scouts at bay. Oliver rushed into the workshop, looking more excited than usual. He had finally found it. The blueprints for a magic gun. Using his Akashic Records skill, Oliver had accessed ancient knowledge and drawn up a perfect, high-precision design. The gun worked by pulling energy from a magic stone cartridge and firing it through the barrel. To actually build it, Will needed mithril and one extremely rare ingredient, a leaf from the world tree. Will and Oliver teleported to the elven forest to ask for help. The Elder and Lucelina were impressed that Oliver could use his skill so well, but they confirmed that world tree leaves are incredibly precious. Just as Will was explaining that he needed the leaf to guide the magic flow in the gun, a single leaf fluttered down from the tree and landed right in his hand. The Elder was stunned, explaining that the tree almost never drops leaves, especially as a young sapling. It was a clear sign that the world tree itself trusted Will. Before Will left, the Elder gave him a serious warning. In the past, whenever the darkness grew, monsters would swarm the world. While Will's inventions and medicines had kept the monster numbers down so far by preventing famine and disease, the darkness was still getting stronger. The Elder warned that intelligent, high-ranking monsters like magic tigers and magic monkeys would soon appear. These beasts can use magic and lead armies of lesser monsters to attack weak spots in human defenses. Back at the workshop, Will got to work. He felt a strange power surging through him as he visualized protecting his loved ones. When he activated his production skill, a warm green light instead of the usual white covered the materials, and a perfect magic gun appeared. Will suspected the world tree had lent him its strength through the leaf. Theo then used his duplication skill to make 3 more copies of the gun. Although it drained Theo's mana, his ability to turn basic soil into complex magical items meant they didn't have to use up any more real world tree leaves. Will kept one gun for the workshop, gave one to the elves, and gave one to Oliver so the non-combatant could protect himself. He took the final gun to the capital to gift it to the king. King Edgar was blown away that Will had mastered ancient tech so quickly. After hearing the Elder's warning about the coming monster attacks, the king immediately ordered the royal knights to increase their patrol. He eventually gave the magic gun to Princess Flora, knowing that while she wasn't a fighter, she needed a way to stay safe during the coming trouble. The Elder's prediction came true almost immediately. In a small eastern village, 5 knights found themselves facing a massive pack of dozens of monsters, including heavy-hitting magic boars. The squad leader ordered his youngest knight to run for help while the rest stayed behind to buy time. Just as the knights were about to be overwhelmed, a group of royal knights arrived. Thanks to the enchanted armor Will had provided to the kingdom, the reinforcements crushed the monsters without losing a single man. The situation was even more intense in the Fairchild territory near the Great Forest. A massive, organized army of monsters marched toward the city in formation. Count Fairchild and Knight Commander Liam weren't scared though. Will had warned them this was coming, so every knight was wearing top-tier gear. The knights opened up with elemental magic, and the Count used a rare light sword skill to slice through the beast. When the monsters realized they couldn't break the knights' enchanted armor, they actually retreated in an orderly fashion. As they left, a bolt of lightning struck the ground, a sign that a high-level magic monster was indeed leading them from the shadows. Back in the capital, King Edgar received reports of these attacks from all over the country. He realized that the only reason his kingdom wasn't falling apart was because of Will's gear. The king made a bold move. He decided to stop playing it safe and started distributing Will's high-level enchanted equipment to all nobles living near dangerous areas. He even authorized the royal knights to use the for-enchantment mithril gear, even though it might make neighboring countries jealous of their power. The king and his prime minister agreed that having Will on their side was the only reason the kingdom had a fighting chance against the growing darkness. While the Albion kingdom was holding its own against the monster attacks, things were looking much worse for the Vandal Empire to the north. On paper, the empire was stronger. They had more people and better gear because they focused on industry. But they were starving. Even though there wasn't a full-blown famine yet, food was so expensive that the soldiers were weak and exhausted. To make matters worse, the same lung disease that hit the kingdom was now tearing through the empire. Since they didn't have the special medicine William invented, their army was falling apart. Inside the imperial palace, the emperor was worried. His second son, Prince Ernst, realized that while the kingdom was thriving thanks to William's inventions like soap and medicine, the empire was struggling just to survive. Ernst heard a rumor that the kingdom didn't appreciate William and was sending him to a remote, undeveloped wasteland as his new territory. Seeing an opportunity, Ernst decided to convince his father to send a friendship mission to the kingdom, secretly hoping to recruit William to their side. Meanwhile, William was busy working on his new land in the south. It was a massive, peaceful grassland perfect for farming. With the help of an expert named Helder, William used his teleportation and production skills to quickly build fences and barns. He even teleported 10 cows to the site, and they were so relaxed they started eating grass immediately. William was happy to see the first steps of his new territory coming together, planning to turn the settlement into a proper village soon. Back at the capital, King Edward received the Empire's request for a visit. He was suspicious because the Empire usually looked down on them. After talking to his advisors and hearing reports from the Levant merchant group, the king realized the Empire was desperate for food and medicine. He figured they were after William's genius. To protect his national treasure, the king warned William's father Theodore to double the security. When the official guest list arrived, things got even weirder. The mission was led by Prince Ernst, but almost all the other members were the daughters of high-ranking nobles and rich merchants. Princess Flora noticed this immediately and got worried. It looked like the Empire was planning to use charms to win William over. Flora quickly sent letters to William's friends, Scarlet and Oliver, asking them to join the welcoming party to keep an eye on things. William was surprised when his father told him he had to go to the capital to meet the prince. Soon after, Scarlet and Oliver showed up at his place, ready to go with him. They didn't tell William about the girl squad the Empire was sending, but they were determined to make sure the Empire didn't try anything funny. With his friends by his side, William set off for the capital, unaware that he was about to be the center of a major diplomatic tug-of-war. Flora got the investigation results back and confirmed her fears. The Empire's friendship mission was actually a squad of beautiful, high-ranking girls meant to charm William into moving to the Empire. Since the Empire values internal development more than the kingdom does, they realize William is a genius and want him for themselves. Flora met with Scarlet and Oliver in the palace garden to plan their defense. Oliver pointed out that the Empire would try to show William that he'd have his pick of wives if he joined them, but Scarlet wasn't worried. She knew William usually just gets awkward around crowds of girls. Still, Flora wasn't taking any chances and decided to gather her own team of the kingdom's smartest and prettiest girls to fight back. Oliver did some extra digging by talking to his contacts at the Levant merchant group. He found out that Imperial spies were already crawling around the capital, though the kingdom's secret service was keeping them in check. To get a better look at the competition, Oliver used his master-level makeup skills to disguise himself as an old farm lady and went to spy on the Empire's carriage. He saw that the girls were definitely impressive, but he felt they were no match for Flora or Scarlet. Plus, he planned to join the girl squad himself in disguise to show the Empire what real beauty looks like. When the Imperial mission finally arrived in the capital, Prince Ernst led the way with a serious look. William, who just wanted to stay in the countryside and relax, was forced to attend the welcoming ceremony. Flora had even used teleportation magic to bring Mabel, William's talented student, to help show off the kingdom's production skills. During the ceremony, Prince Ernst made a beeline for William, telling him straight up that he came to the kingdom specifically to meet him. This bold move put Scarlet and Oliver on high alert. At the big evening party, the atmosphere felt more like a battlefield than a celebration. The Imperial girls tried to surround William, but Scarlet, Flora, and a disguised Oliver blocked them like a wall. The Imperial girls tried to brag, saying the Empire is the only place that truly respects production skills. But Scarlet shut them down by mentioning William's high rank and the rewards he'd already received. When an Imperial merchant's daughter tried to claim they were more progressive, Oliver and Mabel stepped up. Mabel revealed she was the one making the famous jewel soaps that the Imperial girls actually used and loved, which left the visitors stunned. The clash peaked when a leader of the Imperial girls, Charlotte, tried to mock Scarlet's sword skills as useless for a woman. Scarlet just smiled and explained that in the kingdom, everyone fights to protect what matters, and she spends her days hunting monsters just to be worthy of standing by William's side. Flora joined in, acting very close to William to show the Empire he was already taken and well-loved by the royals. Completely outmatched and confused by how powerful and independent the kingdom's women were, the Imperial girls admitted defeat. Flora and her team walked away laughing, having successfully protected their national treasure from the Empire's charm. The Vandal Empire wasn't giving up easily. After their charm squad failed, Prince Ernst realized he had underestimated how much the kingdom valued William. He met with William's father and William himself, dropping the act and getting straight to the point. He revealed that the Empire was in a massive mess. Extreme cold was killing their crops, and the same lung disease William cured in the kingdom was now wiping out their people. He begged William to move to the Empire, promising to make him a member of the Imperial royalty. Ernst even bowed his head in a plea for help, which is unheard of for a prince. William liked the guy's honesty but couldn't just leave his home and the world tree. His father stepped in, politely explaining that William was already set to become a lord in the kingdom. When Ernst tried to argue that the kingdom was punishing William by sending him to a wasteland, William corrected him, explaining he chose that land himself for a secret, high-level reason. Ernst realized there was a deep mystery he couldn't touch and backed off for a moment. However, things took a sharp turn when the Empire's spies and experts reported back. They discovered that William wasn't just a farmer and a doctor. He was also the genius who created the kingdom's new, superpowered armor and a brand new type of wheat that grows in freezing cold. Realizing William was a literal god-tier talent, Ernst decided to go all in. At a big party filled with nobles, the Empire's officials made a shocking public demand. They wanted William to marry the imperial princess and move to the Empire immediately. To sweeten the deal, Ernst offered to share the Empire's top-secret iron-making technology, which the kingdom had wanted for years. But then came the threat. Ernst warned that if the kingdom refused, the empire was ready to go to war. This caused a total panic among the nobles. King Edward stepped in to cool things down, but behind closed doors he was worried. He knew William was a savior chosen by the world tree and couldn't be traded like a pawn, but a war with a starving, desperate empire would be brutal. Surprisingly, the threat of war actually united the kingdom. The old-school, grumpy nobles who usually hated change were offended that the empire tried to bully them. They told the king they'd rather fight than cave to threats. At the same time, the powerful duke from the north, whose lands William had saved from famine, sent his son to pledge his full military support. He made it clear that his family owed William everything and would fight to the death to protect him. With his people finally united behind William, King Edward felt much stronger. He realized that while the prince was acting crazy, the empire's own diplomats looked terrified by the threat of war. Suspecting that Prince Ernst might be acting on his own without the emperor's full permission, the king ordered his advisors to peek behind the scene. He needed to find out if the empire was truly ready for a bloody conflict, or if the prince was just playing a very dangerous game of poker to steal the kingdom's greatest treasure. Princess Flora returned to her room, her mind racing. She knew the kingdom couldn't let William go, especially with his deep connection to the elves and the world tree. But the empire's threat of war over a marriage proposal was a desperate move from a starving, dying nation. As she brainstormed a way to reject the prince without starting a fight, a strange sensation washed over her. Her body suddenly glowed with a divine light, shocking her maid, Cecilia. Though the light faded quickly, Flora felt her mind clear with a sudden, brilliant plan. She didn't know it yet, but far away, an ancient elven tablet had just revealed her as a new apostle, a legendary negotiator destined to support the savior with the power of her words. Meanwhile, William's father, Theodore, received a frantic visit from his friend, Count Cardiff. The Count broke the news that the Empire had officially demanded William marry their princess. When William was called in, he confirmed he had already turned them down privately, but the Empire was clearly ignoring his wishes to pressure the king. Theodore realized the Empire was obsessed with William's inventions, like his frost-resistant wheat and enchanted gear. While Cardiff worried about his own daughter Reddy's future with William, he pledged his full support to keep the boy in the kingdom. They knew the king wouldn't trade William for the Empire's secret iron-making tech, but they had to find a way to let the Empire save face to avoid a bloody conflict. The tension reached a breaking point in the royal audience chamber. The king's officials formally rejected the marriage proposal, stating that the kingdom respects the will of its people and William had no interest in leaving. Prince Ernst exploded in anger, claiming this was a direct insult to the imperial family. He even threatened to lead his own personal army into battle, regardless of the monster threat. Just as things were about to turn violent, Princess Flora stepped into the room. A strange calm followed her, and even the angry prince found himself listening as she pointed out that a war between humans only helps the monsters. Flora then dropped a bombshell that silenced the entire room. She looked Ernst in the eye and revealed that the Empire's request was impossible because William was already her fiancé. King Edward quickly backed her up, explaining they had kept it secret to avoid political drama. This move completely trapped the prince. Since he had argued that royal marriages are matters of national honor, he couldn't very well ask the kingdom to insult its own princess by handing over her future husband. The threat of war vanished instantly as the prince realized he had been checkmated by his own logic. But Flora didn't stop at just winning the argument. She offered the empire a lifeline to ensure long-term peace. She promised that if the empire signed a formal alliance, the kingdom would sell them wheat at the same low price their own citizens paid, rather than the hiked-up export rates. She even offered to provide William's life-saving lung medicine to help stop the plague ravaging the empire. Ernst was stunned by her generosity, especially after he had just threatened her country. Realizing that Flora was a far superior leader and a true friend, his hostility turned into deep respect and gratitude. With the empire finally ready to cooperate, King Edward prepared to share the deeper secrets of the coming monster war. Just after the king and princess Flora handled the tense situation with the empire, they called William and his father to the palace for a private meeting. Instead of the usual fancy throne room, they were led to the king's personal living quarters, showing just how secret this talk needed to be. The king got straight to the point. The empire had threatened war to kidnap William and marry him off to their princess. While the empire offered secret tech in exchange, the king made it clear he would never trade William away or separate him from the world tree. To block the empire's move permanently, the king proposed a shocking solution. William should get engaged to Princess Flora. Since the empire argued that royal marriages were matters of national honor, they couldn't complain if William was already promised to a high-ranking princess of his own kingdom. Flora admitted she had suggested the idea herself. She told William that beyond politics, she truly respected his kind heart and wanted to stand by his side as he fulfilled his duty as the savior. William, though surprised, realized how much she cared and officially accepted, kneeling to swear he would cherish her. However, Flora wasn't done. She surprisingly suggested that William should also get engaged to his childhood friend Scarlet. She explained that as William's fame grew, many nobles would try to force their daughters on him as concubines or spies. By having two trusted fiancées, Flora for politics and Scarlet for protection, he could block any outsiders from getting close. The king and William's father both agreed this was the smartest move. When William worried if Scarlet actually liked him that way, his father laughed, realizing William was still clueless about girls. William later met Scarlet privately at her family's mansion to ask her how she felt. He told her she was the person who understood him best, and that he'd be genuinely happy to marry her if she wanted it. Scarlet, with tears in her eyes, confessed she had been working so hard on her magic and sword skills just so she could feel worthy of standing next to him. She happily agreed to the engagement, and the two childhood friends officially became a couple. With the internal matters settled, King Edward and Princess Flora held a final, top-secret meeting with Prince Ernst of the Empire. They revealed the truth. William is the legendary savior chosen by the World Tree to fight a growing darkness. They explained that the recent famines, diseases, and monster attacks were all because the World Tree had been weakened by evil forces. The king revealed that William's move to the Wasteland wasn't a punishment, but a mission to plant the World Tree in a powerful new location to save the world. Prince Ernst was stunned. He realized he had almost started a war with the very person meant to save humanity. Deeply moved by Flora's wisdom and the kingdom's generosity, the prince dropped his pride and bowed low, apologizing for his threats. He officially dropped his demand for William to marry the imperial princess and pledged that the empire would become a loyal ally. Instead of a war, the two nations signed a pact to fight the monsters together, ensuring William would have the full support of both the kingdom and the empire for the battles ahead. The tension with the Vandal Empire finally cooled down after Princess Flora's brilliant move. With the threat of war gone, the kingdom and the empire officially signed a peace treaty to fight the monsters together. This was a huge relief for everyone. To seal the deal and protect William from any more political kidnapping attempts, it was officially decided that he would marry both Princess Flora and his childhood friend Scarlet. The news of the alliance spread quickly. King Edward made sure everyone knew that the two nations were now partners, and the upcoming royal engagements were the talk of the town. Most people were happy about the news, especially since everyone could feel the monster threat growing stronger. William and his father Theodore finally headed back to their home territory. While Theodore took the long way back by carriage for official reasons, he told William to use his teleportation magic to go home early and rest. Back in his own room, William felt a wave of relief. He immediately caught his mother and sister, Sophie, up on everything the alliance, the crazy demands from the empire, and his double engagement. His mother was shocked but understanding, realizing the king had to act fast. Sophie was mostly worried about Scarlet, but when she heard Scarlet was also getting engaged to William, she was so happy she actually started crying. She had always seen Scarlet as an older sister and was thrilled they'd officially be family. The next day, William took his student Theo and teleported to the Elven Forest to update the Elder and Luna. When the Elder heard that Flora was the one who talked the Empire down, she smiled. She revealed that the World Tree's ancient tablet had reacted. Flora had officially awakened as a new legendary apostle known as the Negotiator. According to the legend, her words have a special power that makes anyone listen, which is exactly how she stopped a war. The Elder explained that while Flora isn't a frontline fighter, her role is just as important. She is the one who will keep humanity united when things get dark and people start turning on each other. During this visit, William also shared the news of his engagement. The elves were happy for him, noting that having strong, loyal partners is essential for a savior. A few weeks later, the capital held a massive ceremony for the formal signing of the peace treaty. Prince Ernst returned from the Empire, and this time the atmosphere was totally different. Instead of threats, there was mutual respect. The treaty was a win-win. The kingdom would provide food and medicine to the starving empire, and in return, the empire would provide high-quality iron so the kingdom could upgrade its soldiers' armor from leather to metal. During the grand celebration, King Edward stood before the nobles and announced William's new rank. Because of his incredible inventions, including a new type of wheat that grows in the cold, William was promoted to a count. Even the grumpy, old-fashioned nobles cheered. Then the king officially announced the double engagement. When Prince Ernst stood up to lead the applause, the whole room erupted in cheers. Later, William met with Flora and the king privately. He noticed Flora had been glowing lately and asked if she'd felt anything strange. She confirmed that while she was dealing with the prince, her body had suddenly emitted a divine light. William explained that this was the sign of an apostle awakening. To confirm her new powers, William teleported Flora to the world tree. When she touched the ancient stone tablet, it glowed brightly and revealed her unique skill. Charisma. The elder explained that this wasn't just about being liked. It was a powerful tool that would help her gather people from all over the world to support William in the coming war. Flora felt a new sense of purpose, realizing she had her own way to fight alongside him. With his heart full and his allies united, William looked toward the future. He knew the darkness was still coming, but with his friends, his new fiancées, and the support of two great nations, he was ready to keep building a better world. After dropping Flora off at the palace, William returned to his workshop and met with Ira, the leader of the women he had rescued. She had great news. The plastic worms had multiplied quickly, and they now had a massive supply of durable, silk-like plastic thread. William visited the greenhouse and was thrilled to see the project thriving, though he joked that his bug-hating friend Letty should never see this place. The women were healthy, happy, and deeply loyal, proving that hiring them was the right move. While relaxing at the workshop cafe, William accidentally bumped into Mabel, knocking her glasses to the floor. She was terrified the expensive glass lenses would break, which gave William a brilliant idea. Using his production skill and the new plastic thread, he created lightweight, shatterproof plastic lenses. Mabel was the first to master the new crafting process, so William put her in charge of the optics department. The plastic lenses became an instant hit, and William used the profits to give the worm caretakers a big raise, helping them start new, happy lives in the city. However, a big problem loomed over his plans for the southern wasteland. He had plenty of land but almost no people. Even with help from the Cardiff family, most folks were too scared of monsters to move to the wild south. William realized that at this rate, it would take years to build the supply route needed to move the world tree to its new home. He needed a miracle to solve the labor shortage, and just as he was stressing out, he felt a strange surge of power inside him. His hands began to glow with a divine light, signaling another awakening. He could sense that this new magic was the key to his staffing problems, but he felt a strong pull to head toward the world tree to fully unlock it. He also realized that purified monster cores would be essential for whatever was coming next. After a quick pesto pasta lunch with his assistants, Theo and Oliver, he explained that he had leveled up again and needed to visit the elves immediately. The trio teleported to the elven forest, where the elder welcomed them warmly. She wasn't surprised by William's growth, noting that since Flora had awakened as an apostle, it was only natural for the savior to get stronger too. Luna joined them as they headed toward the hidden sanctuary. For the first time, Luna stepped up to chant the secret spell to open the path through the massive gate tree, showing how much she had grown as a mage. As the entrance opened, William stepped toward the world tree, ready to discover the magic that would finally help him build his new kingdom.